Welcome guys to yet another tutorial in the Geodjango tutorial series 2. Basically in the last tutorial we saw how to write Geo APIs, and we had these files where we were able to create serializers, and we had our API running, as you can see from this side. So in this session I want us to display this data that you can see here on the front end. So basically we'll be creating some views and some templates, which basically will display the map, which will hold the data that we shall add through Django admin, and basically we can catch up from there. All right guys, so last time we looked at having serializers, and I hope you've watched the previous video. And in this video we had a file on serializers.py, which basically had two serializers. One is a geo feature model serializer, which basically carries whatever you can see here, and it's referenced on the map, on the view, sorry, the list API view, which we have on this end. So we are currently using this serializer to display whatever is here. So how do we now get this data to our front end? So there are quite a number of ways. So in this video I'll be showing you the a couple of ways. So first of all, if I try to load the home page, of course it will tell me page not found. This is because we've not yet added a view or even a URL that directs to these this end. So we can do that quickly. So basically from here we could basically add another view, sorry, not a view but a URL, and we can leave it a blank as that. So before we even add the view, before we even add the URL, we need to create a view. So here basically let me just create it here. We can just call it a home view like that, and of course this will be we can import one of the generic views that we have. So I could do from Django, what am I doing, from Django dot views dot generic import template view. So here we shall use the template view there, and in the template view we just need to define a couple of things. So the first thing that we'll define is basically what we call pardon me from the autocomplete. So we shall define a template name, and this template name will basically be a template within our application. So here I can just call it maybe home.html like that. So let me just paste that a little bit. Then of course within our application we can create a templates directory. So in here, not in but basically within here we can create a folder. We call it templates. Then in there just create a new file and call it home.html. all right, so now this is the file that we'll use to that we are basically referring to when we have this home view. So we could simply have the simple HTML syntax. So of course my window here is not giving me, let me just switch quickly to HTML. Okay, so I've just done these for purposes of sorry. So we have the head, then we can have the title, and then we can have sorry, shop mapper. Okay, then after this we can have the body tag. Okay, so there you are. So inside this body, this is where we will have some display. So for now, if I just save this file and of course open up this, now here I can comfortably import home view, and if I head home view as view like that, of course I can give it a name and maybe call it home. Okay, so now if you try to refresh this page, of course it will tell us the template does not exist. But if we look at our template, so we have this template, and we can see that we have that file here. So there are a couple of things that we need to do, and this stuff are basically, if you look at our settings file, we need to basically tell the application where to get the templates. So on this end, we need to define, so there are these components under templates within settings where we need to define or to basically tell the application where to find this templates directory. So we can create that quickly, and we need to define it inside here. So let me see whether I've imported OS. Okay, I've not imported OS, so basically we can import OS. This is because we need to define a path. So under this directory, to basically we need to tell the application where to find the template folder. So we'll have os.path, and then of course we are trying to join the current application location on the machine, and then of course we have to tell, so if you look up here, there's basically what we call the base DR. So these are basically the path of the current, so we need to define the path of from the operating system folder structure. We need to tell the application where to find certain types of directories, and also subdirectories, like we shall see when we handle things like static files and all that. We shall see more about that. So here, so we basically need to join the base directory with the template folder, which is basically located within our application. So after the join, you could basically do base dir, and then of course comma, and then now you define or you give the name of the folder, which is basically templates, which is here. So now with that, we expect the application will be able to find our templates. Let's see. Okay, bingo. So now it's able to find our template, but because our file is just empty, it has nothing. So for example, if I add haha, you just see this one or haha printed out on that end. Okay, so but what we want is basically we want to print out or to have a map on this page where we can showcase some of the data that we find on the API. And to do that, of course, we need to point out, in this case, or in this tutorial, we'll be using Leaflet. In the first tutorial you saw, we installed Django Leaflet, which basically is the one handling the maps within the application. So we could go for Leaflet CDNs. We see some of the CDNs that we can use for Leaflet. So this is because of course we need to use the library, the Leaflet library, so we can always utilize it. The other way would basically be to loading the leaflet. You'd load leaflet tags, but basically for me, this approach, I don't like it that much. It's kind of limiting, or you have to do a lot of work in trying to get some things to work. So for my case, I just use the usual referencing to various CDNs, and I'm able to work with this. Probably I might I can maybe show you how to work with Leaflet, the Django Leaflet on the front end in another video. But for this one, let me just proceed with what I like. So so on this page, we basically have a number of CDNs, so you can of course see all this. So we basically need two files here. We need the CSS and we need the JS file. So we see the first one is basically referencing to the JavaScript file, and the second one is not the second one, but this other one is referencing to the CSS. You can change, of course, the versions that you need. Like I can see this is the latest version, so you could always switch to probably versions that you're comfortable with or versions that you've worked with before. For example, 1.7.1 is pretty amazing. You could always switch the versions. There's like the differences in terms of syntax and all that is not as much. So I'll just maybe come up here on the head. So you need to come here and you can have the link, and then of course href. So I'll copy one of these CSS files here. So I can just copy that and I paste it here. Sorry, I paste this there, and of course that. And then the next would be a script, which basically can have a source. Okay, then I copy the JavaScript one, this one here. All right, and then of course you have the script. Let me expand this a bit. All right, so now you have references to the 1.71 version of Leaflet CSS and Leaflet JS. So now coming here, we could have a div that we could probably have an ID that we can reference as map, and of course maybe we can define a style where we can define a height, could probably say 500 pixels, and a width of probably 100%. Okay, so that's it. So after that, you could basically have a script which basically host, or you could write within. So this part is dependent on how you like your things organized. We also need apparently we also need jQuery for some of these purposes. But let me just first of all write a script here. So within the script that we are writing, we need to create our map, which basically will be displayed on this div. And the map, of course, depending on how so because you are using Leaflet, you can always have Leaflet and then of course map, and then of course then there are quite a number of options that you can have within the map component. So we shall of course explore quite a number. So options are contained within the curly brackets here. So we have that. Okay, so now we could probably enter. So here we can define quite a number of things. So we have, for example, the center of the map, which we could define. This is probably basically defining the latitude, longitude. Let me just guess a location within Kenya, and then 36 point blah blah blah. Okay, so that could be our center. We could also have a zoom, which probably could say 4. Forgotten a comma here. So we could start with something like this, but there'll be an issue. Just watch. If I try to refresh this page, of course, okay, I had not registered this tag. Okay, we shall see. I think I'll have to do a video on these leaflet, Django leaflet on the front end. So I have to do that. So okay, so basically nothing appears here. So let me just spice it up a little bit. If we try to check or inspect this page, you'll see that oh sorry, I had a typo there. Let me just refresh. So you can see I have these like I don't know what it is actually, because it's just some funny thing. So let me just maybe spice it up a little bit. We can add things like base maps, which you basically can you could actually Google maybe leaflet base maps, or you could even go to the main leaflet documentation. You can get links to a number of base maps that exist. I'll also share a link on that. So basically, we could have, for example, we could load Google Streets. So this will basically be our base map, and so adding a base map within leaflet is not as difficult. So the syntax is pretty simple, and of course we need just to have a l.tile layer, and then you put the link, which I need to get the link, one of the links to some of these tiles. Okay, yeah, so I have this one here. Of course I'll share this one. I'm not sharing per se from how to get the base maps, because of course it differs. So that's pretty it. Like a tile layer, you just need to define the path of the tiles, and then the maximum zoom in which you can go to the tiles, and then the subdomains. So these you could with this we could now on this edge we just define layers, and then here we could put Google Streets. All right, something like that. So now if I try to refresh my page, okay, so we have an issue here that we need to sort out. Let me check. I see I do not have any issue with whatever is being loaded here. All right. I think I could be having an issue with it could be an issue with the version of the leaflet that we are using. So I think let me just do this. Let me just get the latest version, which is basically 1.8. Okay, so there I have it. So let me just replace these ones with that, and then I get the CSS file, which is here. Okay, so let me refresh the page. The same issue. So probably there could be an issue with this source, with the CDN here. So let me just go to the leaflet library. So sometimes there's an issue with the references to the various CDNs because of some of that. For example, these we having HTTPS. The link here probably it requires some keys or some tokens to access. So probably I'm not getting that. That's why I'm getting such a thing on my template. So let me just try to check it up with the quick, so I can see. Yeah. So on this one, let me just. It's usually sometimes it's better to use the simple things that are provided to you. Let me just try out with this. I want to confirm whether I'm having an issue with the source of my apparently. So that was the issue. Okay, so now that we have we only have the map, we only have the one base map, and the map is supposed to be centered to this latitude and longitude. So of course we have the map here, and depending on the parameters of what you put here, so you can have a map that is either bigger in height, or even filling up the page like whatever I have here, 100%. All right, so with that we could basically now go on. So we still have our data, which is basically on our API. Let me just open a new tab here where we had shop API, and this data we need to display it on this map. So how do we go about that? So to do that, we basically this is what I was saying, that in the beginning that now that we have the API, we could use the API way to load the data, but in this part of creating an API, there's also some easier way that you can actually load the data into your application. So let me go with the first option, or the API that we've created here. So here I need to define a layer, and in this case, because the data that is returned by our API is a GeoJSON, and we can actually see it from here. So we need to create a GeoJSON reference here, so we can have I can't type, okay, shops, and then we have l.geojson. So of course, yeah, we can put it as null like that. So here we are referencing to GeoJSON. We are creating a GeoJSON layer that will be loaded onto this map. So we have it there, and then of course we can use jQuery to load the data, because it's coming from an endpoint that basically has all the data as in a file, in a GeoJSON format. So there's usually a format in which we load this data. So you could possibly do something like it's a get JSON, something of the sort. So here we have a couple of things that we need to define. One is the source of the data, which is basically the URL. So we can define the URL down here. So we have URL, and in this case we have a couple of ways in which you can reference it. We can either because the endpoint that we are using here, like there's nothing on this part, so we could easily get this shop API like that, and we could actually put it that way, and this one will still work actually. The other alternative would basically be to reference the URL with the name that we gave it on this bit here. So we have shop API there, and then of course that. So because this, let's use double quotes like that. So this will give us, this URL will give us the data that is basically on this API. Okay, so from there we need to give so we need to, because it's jQuery, it needs to, like, we have to listen to the request and what will be processed after it gets the GeoJSON, or basically the file that we are trying to load. So we can have a function which basically we can have e or data or whatever places you can put, you can replace that in that component. So after this, we could just say that we want to load shops dot add add data, add data, and then we put the e there. So remember, we could actually change this to data. Okay, so the variable here, maybe for understanding purposes, we could just have it like that. So from this bit, if we try to load this map, if I save this file and try to load the map here, I'll get an error, basically because we do not have, we need reference to the jQuery. So if I inspect this page and I go to console, it will of course tell me that this is not defined. Okay, so in this case, we can just search for jQuery CDN, and yes, I find one here. You could use any version. Let me use the minified version of 2.4. So there I just need to put it before the leaflet JavaScript file. Okay, there you are. And if I try to reload this, now I should have no error, but of course my marker is not yet loaded. So if we go to the admin side of things, I could see I'm on these coordinates, and from this bit, of course, the coordinates, I know they are not basically, we could change. Let me just do this for purposes of easier referencing. So let me just do this. Okay, Java TRM, let me just switch. So I didn't actually work on this bit. I can just assume it for now, because we have another topic of how we can now mend these bits of the admin and everything. So let me just do this. I just want to check. So the map is here, but we have nothing loaded. So this is basically because the data that we, or the layer that we have here, do not basically conform to, or we need to define a style in which the data will be loaded with. So to do that, I need to add something on the reference to the GeoJSON file here, like that. So I can have what we call point to layer, which is basically we need to define what will be showcased or what will be shown on the map. So function. So here under this function, we need to define two things. There's what we call the feature, and we can also either define a layer or that long. Basically, these are arguments. You can have arguments names different from mine, so that is all okay. But here we need to return a marker, which is basically what will be showcased on that bit. So a marker, and then of course I pass in the lat long, so it will show the marker under this bit. So now with that, if I try to refresh my map, I should now have the point loaded. Woohoo. Let me see why this is so. Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't add these shops like map dot add layer. Okay, so I didn't add that to the map. Okay, there you are. So now I have this marker here, and of course, as you can see, it's basically lying out of nowhere. Basically, because I guessed the location on this bit, but no worries. So depending on where you put the markers and everything, you can always find or have the marker showcased on your map. So that's how you are able to display the markers on the map. But of course, this is not the only way. There are quite a number of ways in which you could do this, and depending on what you have or what you basically want to display, you can find these options. So option 2 is basically, instead of this, you could actually have the application in such a way that this could be the bigger, or the big like the API endpoint that you'll share with other applications for integrations and all that. And then you could have your own internal integrations, or your internal GeoJSON data that you could actually use. So for example, under this view, which is home view, I could define what I can call maybe shop view, or I can just call them shops here, like that. And because this will be run under this class, so it's I have self here. You could always return a serialized form of data from what is basically available in this bit. So for example, I could share or I could show maybe something like this. I say shop dot objects dot odd. Remember here you could have filters. For example, you want maybe to filter something or you want to maybe do something as a either a query, or maybe you want to order. So that one you can actually, this query set, you can play around with it. So now this could be my shop, like that, and then I can return I could return a serialized data from these query sets. So to do that, it's not that difficult. We could just say from Django. So we need to import a serializer. So from Django, basically.co import, import, what's wrong with my typing today? Import serializers. Okay. So with that, I could just return serializers dot serialize, and then I could just say I want to serialize the shop. So there's something I'm doing here intentionally. We shall see why. So we want to serialize the shop, but here at the beginning we need to define what we want to serialize it as. So we want to serialize GeoJSON, and of course this is the query which now refers to this. If you're a person who loves short codes, you could always copy this here just to reduce the number of lines of code. And let me just, so to reference to this class, you could basically just come here. I just want to, first of all, you see how the structure of these data. So before this map, let me just paste something here. So so it's view.shop. This is how you reference to this function. Okay, if I try to reload the page, look at that feature collection. It's amazing. Okay, so we could actually use an option to display this information on the map, but we still have it's the same data that is on this main API. Okay, so with this, because we've seen that it's returning the rightful data, if you wanted to basically showcase, let me just remove that one there. If you wanted to now add this data onto the map here, it would be pretty simple. You do not even need all this. You only need to reference to the data or from the whatever we've just, whatever you had here, view.shops. So to do that, let me just, this was one way of doing things. Let me just, not the add up to here. Let me just comment out those. Let me just show you another way in which we could basically do this. We could have GeoJSON. So here under this GeoJSON, we need to reference to the function, which is basically something like this. So we had view.shops like that, and then so based on Django, we could actually so when you use these kind of references, there's of course things like escape, save, and all that. So we need to mark it as safe so that it's not decoded by HTML. So we need it as is, so we can just put the filter or the tag safe. And then of course, so I want us to try something out here. So if I was to create this map here, okay, let me just put this one above here, or let me just put it above there. So if I was to put this one here, now to be the one that is referencing the data that we need to load, that we've already serialized here. If you look at this, I just want you to see, if I reload the map, whether there's anything that will be loaded, will be actually be told invalid GeoJSON object. Why is this happening? It's because this data cannot directly go into the GeoJSON reference that we have on our map. So we need to basically make this GeoJSON data to be valid. So the moment it's invalid, we need to make it valid. And to make it valid, it's pretty simple. I can just call it GeoJSON valid. And to make it valid, we just need to pass GeoJSON. So we just need to pass this as GeoJSON there. Right. So now with that, instead of referencing to JSON here, we now reference to that. And if I refresh my page, bingo, I have my point here. Okay. So that's how of different options in which you can load data on your maps, on your front end, basically. Remember, we tackled a topic on creating APIs or Geo APIs. What I usually do personally is that I use this kind of serializer or APIs when I want to have an endpoint that I could actually hit and do something. But for internal smaller bits of the various components of pages, I just use these options. It's pretty simple, mostly when you're not dealing with much data. Okay, so yeah, so that's how you load the data. Of course, these are two methods. You can choose the one that works for you, and of course you can develop from there. So in the next one, we shall see how to add more things such as pop-ups, controls and all that on our front end, and of course how we can customize our Django admin. So cheers guys, have fun.